let's call this a regular select board meeting of the Putney Select Board. This is January 12th, 2022, and we'll call the meeting to order at 5:37. And we are, due to the circumstances of us not being able to gather at Town Hall, we're a little discombobulated as far as working on the agenda. So Karen, I don't know whether you want to run us through adjustments to the agenda or how you want to think that about that.
No, I think we can. I recommend to the select board we table select board item B, Wyndham Sheriff's Department overview. Item E and item D. So it's B, D, and E. And then executive session obviously won't happen tonight. And it can wait.
All right. Okay. So next on our agenda would be approval of minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of December 29th, 2021.
And I'll second that.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the minutes of December 29th. Does anybody have any questions or comments?
No.
Then all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Next would be warrants to the treasurer.
I'll make a motion to approve and execute the warrants to the treasurer as presented upon completion of review. Thank you, Karen.
You're welcome.
And I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve and execute the warrants to the treasurer upon completion of review. Karen, if you would like to review for us.
Sure. January 14th, 2022 payroll warrant in the amount of $18,077.95.
Anybody have any questions on that?
Oh,
No.
Okay, so and accounts payable.
Accounts payable dated for January 14th, 2022 in the amount of $123,063.95. I'll remind the board that this is 2 pay periods. So we have 2 warrants in here because 2 weeks ago they weren't available.
So one that I'm having trouble bringing it up again, but one that I know I've heard it before and I just couldn't remember. Allen Engineering.
That is for chemicals for water treatment plant.
Okay.
ESO Solutions?
That's that software program that the fire department requested.
Got it.
The new one,
Yes,
is it records management?
yes.
Okay.
Nora Zelmer. I know Nora is a taxpayer. Is that related? It usually says taxpayer and I didn't see that, so I didn't know.
Yeah, that actually is a White Whitney.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
All right, we should probably, yeah. Okay. Any other questions?
I don't see anything.
I've got a question, Josh and Karen and David and Eileen. The items that we tabled for discussion and action tonight, when are they going to be taken up?
Oh, we're going to have another meeting a week from tonight, Charlie. Just because we just found out this morning, sort of mid-morning, that somebody in town hall tested positive.
Right.
So it just sort of scrambled our agenda for today. Karen the town hall is closed for all practical purposes for the rest of the week because we don't obviously want to risk any exposure. And we just didn't want to have people in, and it just threw things for a loop. So we're going to have another meeting next week, which would be a special meeting because it's not on our regular schedule, but the 19th at 5:30.
Okay, and in terms of temporarily closing town hall, that makes imminent sense.
We hope so, and hopefully we can contain what happened, and hopefully it doesn't keep going, but we'll see as time plays out. And of course, it's tricky, all the time frames on how to predict communicability, et cetera, are a little tricky. So we're trying to just err on the side of caution. But
Makes sense. This morning, I don't know if this is necessary for an FYI, but the DRB was going to have a meeting at Town Hall on one of the permit applications. And a couple of us didn't realize the situation, so we showed up. But Karen briefed us, and so we decided to not have the meeting there, but essentially by phone, off-site.
yes, and that we will just so town hall will be closed for regular business for the rest of the week. Also, any non-select board meetings will be, and I'm not sure there are any more scheduled for the week, but there won't be meetings held in town hall either.
There was an energy committee meeting for tomorrow. We haven't decided what we're doing yet.
So you'll either have to go, there should in theory be a public presence, but this is sort of an oddball situation. So I think if you want to go remote and not have a public presence, I would think that would be okay. You might want.
We're not making any decisions really. We're just having, we're having some people talk to us. So I think that would be okay.
I would think so too. I would suggest maybe that you record it, Eileen, if you weren't thinking of doing that, as long as people are okay with that. Just so that if anything comes up, you have a record of it.
Okay.
I've got a question to the board. Is there any protocol for, I don't know, cleaning or whatever town hall under the circumstances, or is this a case of first impression, so to speak?
Well,
We're just doing it on our own.
Okay.
So
sanitizing surfaces and things. But, I think you would know, Charlie, that the data is pretty darn clear that, respiratory droplets don't remain in the air for that long, and that it's really not conveyed by surface contaminants. So, I think it's great that we're cleaning surfaces and doing things, but as far as COVID is concerned, it's more about not having people gathering in the building than it is about the cleanliness of the building itself.
Okay.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Okay, so
I think we're still on warrants.
yes.
Sorry.
So we have reviewed the warrants, and it was moved and seconded to approve and execute the warrants upon completion of review. Are we all satisfied that review is complete?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, in that case, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, public comments on items not on the agenda. I am not able to see a screen other than my single screen with the attendance. I see Doug has his hand.
Yeah, we have Doug. I can try to monitor that if you want.
Okay, people who are on video I can see, but if others come up, Eileen, that would be great. So Doug, you have a public comment?
Yeah, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
So I came to this as a result of last night's meeting, and I see that it's no longer on the agenda, so I'm going to ask if I could just make a short statement while it's on my mind. I may forget before the next meeting on that agenda. Is that okay? The
This
sheriff,
is related to the sheriff's department?
yeah, last night, the meeting last night.
Yeah, sure. I'm fine with that. Everybody fine with that?
Yes.
Sounds good. Sure,
So
go
I
ahead, Doug.
stopped by Rod's and talked to Greg for a few minutes about my idea, and we are totally in agreement. Just to jump to the bottom line, I explained to him that I took a class when I was in college 100 years ago about whatever, and we did a case study on meter maids randomly surveilling the town for parking violations when they didn't have enough meter maids. And how do you do that? And we the conclusion was to how effective would it be to have a random, roll the dice and decide to go this way or that way or the other way. And the reason I thought of that last night, I forgot my hearing aid, so I couldn't hear hardly anything. Ran off in a hurry, so I decided to wait. But I'm thinking to get a presence. We want to have a presence so that people know that we are going to pop up. We, the police, are going to pop up and surprise. And Greg said that's supposedly what the sheriff is doing. They're going randomly here and there and every other where, so that especially in his opinion on Main Street, I'm not sure. I think first we need to look at where are the problems, and 50% here, 25% there, whatever, figure out what the strategy would be. But to increase the randomness of a presence, a strong presence, and maybe we, instead of spending a half an hour catching speeders on Main Street, we spend 10 minutes and then go do something else. I don't know the answer, but I would be willing to help on that, given my little bit of background in that sort of analysis over my career. And the bottom line was, we both concluded I don't mind spending an extra $40 if it costs everybody in town $40 a year to have a sheriff or security or some sort of person who was a very strong presence. $40 I think would be money well spent, and $80,000 a year, whatever. Anyway, that's all I wanted to say about that.
Thank you. I do think that's how they intend to do it. I also, I commented last night before I had to run out, that it's only 40 hours a week to do a whole lot more. And I think, I haven't done the math, but given the grand list, it might be significantly more than 40 for some, might be less for others. But, the unfortunate reality is in these times, an extra $40 might be the difference between having food on the table for a week and not. So, I hear what you're saying, Greg, and I appreciate Doug, and I appreciate the sentiment, and I think we'll take it into consideration. I think the other, I don't know how it fits into this, but certainly another part of the discussion has been some variation on neighborhood watching, and what sort of the randomness of that would be. But, to try and cover 24 hours a day is hard. And I think the data that we get from the sheriff's office, tells us where they are most of the time. But my impression is that crime happens surprisingly randomly, surprisingly all over town. Not necessarily surprisingly, but all over town. And to try and cover that is really, really tough. Main Street might be a concentration, and we could certainly explore that. But I think we might be surprised to see that it comes in cycles, and sometimes it's here, sometimes it's there, sometimes it's somewhere else. So, Doug.
Yeah, I know it's random everywhere, but you can't respond to everything. I think the idea is not to respond, but to have a huge, big presence.
Visibility.
Have a car that's as fat and big as you can, and obvious, not just a neighborhood watch person walking down the street. So somebody with a big gun, a big club standing on a corner. So whoever it is walking down the street knows that somebody's going to pound on him if he does something wrong. Just to scare them away. Of
course, we want to discourage any type of vigilantism. So Again, I appreciate the sentiment, but we want to be cautious about that. So we certainly
Anyway.
would not want to encourage people to go out and pound on anybody.
Well, no, that's not the point. To have a person in a police uniform in a
Right.
car, and
Yes.
even if it's just a car parked and doesn't even move, as a
Yeah.
reminder, we are here.
Yeah.
That's all. Anyway, so I don't want to belabor the point, but I just wanted to plant that seed. So when it comes up, if I don't happen to come on in the next meeting, some ideas to think about.
Good. Thank you. All right.
Yeah.
Anybody? David? Yeah.
Can I make a comment? I just want to respond to that a little bit. Last night's meeting, I came away from it feeling good about the fact that so many people are thinking about this from so many different perspectives, from the top down, about money, staffing, trying to change the way we respond, call centers, everything. And I agree with you, Doug. We need a bigger presence and we need more coverage. I think, $40 is $40, but I think it's gonna be take money from the state. And I think it's gonna take a lot more than that for us to do what we need to do. And hopefully there'll come a time after we have a big presence where things could taper off. But I agree, it does feel like there's a big gap. And I hear what you're saying, we need to fill that gap. So.
Eileen?
I guess we're segueing into the items that we were taking off the agenda, but the takeaway that I got was that there's a shortage of staffing. And so even if we want that coverage, we may not get it for some time, just because of the reality of how much time it takes to train people and just recruiting people who would like to do that kind of work. So I think I understand the sentiment, but I think we might need to be patient until they can staff up.
There are private concerns that we don't have to hire a policeman. If you had somebody with a private individual who didn't carry a gun or anything, but was a presence, I'm not talking about hiring another policeman. I'm talking about hiring anybody for $80,000 a year. I'd take the job, except I don't want to work anymore.
Yeah, it's also, we've explored this. I mean, you may recall historically, and it's still a potential elected position as constable. And we've also explored having our own department in town. I think you might hiring an individual. I mean, one of the problems that comes with that, and we're sort of getting into sidetracked on a discussion, but liabilities for the town become a real issue, training levels, things like that. So I think these are all important points and all good conversation stuff. And it's a much bigger conversation. So we'll keep having it. Laura,
Yeah, I think we
saw
might
you
want
raised
to,
your-
I'm sorry.
Laura,
This-
did you want to comment?
I didn't mean to raise my hand if it looked like that.
Okay, no problem. All right, so any other public comment on items not on the agenda?
This is Swift. I'm just curious, where is the current agenda? Because, or what is on the agenda if things have been tabled?
You are on the agenda, Swift.
Okay.
So the first thing we're going to do, we're going to basically what was tabled. I mean, it's the same as the agenda that was posted, minus Wyndham Sheriff's Department town meeting preparation, because we don't know quite enough, and I believe state of Vermont equalization study results. So, but you are definitely still on the agenda, so we will be there. We got a few things to do first, but we're getting there. Okay, so Karen, do you have a town manager's report, or do you want to hold on to anything for us?
I'm just gonna defer it till later because I'm good.
Okay, sounds good. So then we'll move to select board items for discussion and action. And first is RHR Smith and Company overview of the draft town audit. Ron Smith and Samantha Ruggles, and I see Samantha. Hi, Samantha. I don't see
Hi.
Ron.
Ron is not joining us tonight, but I am joined by our Director of Quality Control, Kathy Markovich. She's on her phone, so you can't see her lovely face this evening.
Good evening. Nice to meet you.
Hi.
Hi, Kathy.
Hi.
So, Karen, if you don't have anything you want to start with, I'll just jump right in.
Well, no, I just want to remind the select board, I did send draft audits to you.
Yeah. Do you
Yeah.
remember when?
I think it might have been Saturday or,
Yeah, I think it was over the weekend.
yeah.
I
So-
have,
It's okay if you haven't gotten into it. So I've reviewed it, Samantha, and if you want to go ahead and just give us an overview.
Absolutely. I'll just hit a couple of the bullet points, which I know is probably what you're most concerned with. I apologize if I'm a little backlit, you can't see me. You guys started out your year with about $193,000. We did have to restate your fund balance, and when I say restate, I mean there were some things that were not caught in FY20 that we had to correct on our end. It was only about a $15,000 restatement, which was, I believe it was a payroll issue, if my memory is serving me right. But we got that figured out. So you guys came over your budget for your revenues by about 19,000, and you came under your expenditure budget by about 51,000, which, oh, I'm sorry, I'm reading my notes completely wrong. Your expenditures came in under by 32,000, which is giving you guys an increase in your total fund balance by 51,000. So I know that Karen and I have had a lot of conversations about fund balance and what fund balance is. So your fund balance is basically what you have available to use for money. So it's not your cash. It's actually the funds that after you take out all your liabilities from your cash and you add in all of your receivables to your cash, that is your fund balance. That's what you actually have available to you. So at the end of 21, you guys have about a $245,000 fund balance. With that, so while you have 245,000, $144,000 of that is what we consider non-spendable. So that money has already been spent for a specific purpose, and is going to be expensed in 22.
Got it.
So it's a prepaid item. Yeah, go ahead.
can I ask a point of clarification? So this
Sure.
would presumably be the fund balance in the general fund that's available to us. This does not include otherwise designated funds, correct?
Correct. Yeah, when I'm talking, yeah, right now I'm talking about your general fund.
Okay.
So yeah, the $144,000 of non-spendable money is items that you guys the money has already gone out of your bank account in 21, but it's not being expensed or recognized until 22. Those include your Western Star payment, dump truck payment, healthcare, and insurance, property insurance. So those were already spent in 21. They're being recognized as expenses in 22.
I just want to clarify one more thing for people watching, is that when we're talking about 21, 22, we're not actually talking about 2 weeks ago. We're talking about 6 months and 2 weeks ago.
Absolutely,
We're talking about 21 ended on June 30th and 22 started on July 1st. So this is, although these are current discussions and this is the current audit, it's slightly retrospective in that these expenditures took place roughly 6 months ago.
Yeah, so when I say 22, you guys are 7 months into 22, 6 months into 22. So with that being said, you guys have $100,000, just a little bit over $100,000 of unassigned fund balance. which is money that is not designated for any specific purpose. It's not committed to anything. It's not restricted. And I believe we had this conversation with Ron and with you guys last year of this 30, 60, 90 rule.
Right.
And there's a percentage of it as well. And Kathy, if you know the percentage off the top of your head, forgot them out, but I
Off
don't.
the top of my head at 6
Yeah.
o'clock? No.
I think it's like 8, 12, 24, something like that. I go off 30, 60, 90 because it's easier for people to understand.
Yes.
So basically, we like to see your budget within 30, 60 to 90 days of your next year's approved budget. Right now, with your $100,000 of unassigned fund balance, you guys are sitting just under that 30-day of your next year's budget. Ideally, we want to see you at 90.
Right.
But right now you're sitting at 30.
And again, just for clarification, so
Yeah.
people know what Sam's talking about, she's saying that it would, ideally, we would have a balance that would cover a balance of available cash in our account that would cover up to 90 days of all our expenses if we had no other cash coming in.
Right.
So as it is right now, we have enough to cover a little under 30 days. Well, as it was 6 months ago, we had enough to
Absolutely.
cover 30 days. And then, of course, we've collected so far 2 tax payments. So all of this, again, is 6 months, dated by 6 months. So it's a little confusing. Sorry.
Right.
I'm
So
just trying to make it a
ideally,
little clearer. But
at June 30th, in a perfect world, we'd like to see you guys about $331,000.
Right.
That is like that's like the golden area that you want to be. And that's that 90 days of your next year's approved budget. And then why we do this is because God forbid if, your budget doesn't get approved and you don't have a budget yet, then you still have some money to spend until we get that budget approved, you get those tax payments in, all that kind of stuff. So.
Can I?
David, yeah,
ask a
go
question
ahead.
now? I remember having
ahead.
these discussions last year, and we talked about what seemed like a multiple year, 2 or 3 year program for us to try to build this.
Yeah.
And so my question is, at this point, or at that point, 1st of July, compared to the year before 1st of July, has that balance grown? And where are we on that arc?
It's grown. It hasn't grown where we would like it to be.
Okay.
It's only grown by like a couple thousand. Karen and I did have a discussion back in November about having the use of like a tax stabilization fund or like the other terminology is left my mind right now, but a reserve fund, like a general reserve fund, where you can take a portion of your fund balance for each year, and it could be all of it, it could be a percentage of it, whatever you choose or whatever the town votes on, to put into that reserve fund, that it just sits there to help you build up that fund balance. So that is something that Karen and I did talk about.
Okay.
So can I,
Yeah.
when we talk about that 100,000 roughly of available money,
Yep.
technically we're talking, or maybe not technically, but sort of jargon wise, we're talking about surplus, correct?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Good.
Yep.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So, I know that Karen had mentioned that she really wanted to go over the surplus with you guys. I did have a couple more things. I just wanted to know, you guys you added some new equipment to the town in 21. You got some stabilization struts, an exhaust system, a new Western Star storage shed. So those all, Kathy's here because the next question after I say this is probably gonna be something she needs to answer. So those are affecting what is called your net position, which is something that is commonly confused with fund balance. So Kathy, you want to take that away and explain net position?
I certainly can. I can go back even to actually it was almost 15 years ago, I believe, that there was a complete overhaul in the way that governments had to produce and present their financial statements. So instead of just showing fund balances, which most entities were used to seeing, you had to see things on your financial statements like long-term debt and fixed assets. So that routinely is the difference that you're seeing on the financial statements between fund balance, which is what's on statement B, and the statement of net position, which is on statement A, and there's a further statement of activities on statement B. That is it in a nutshell. And kind of what Sam is talking about, all the things that you may buy with your fund balance money if you're doing a lot of capital outlay, if you're doing the larger purchases like Sam just mentioned, those things are expenditures to you, but they also help to increase your net position because you're spending cash.
So I just wanted Kathy to clarify that because it is a very common confusion between what your surplus is and what your net position is, because your net position could be over $1 million, but your surplus is 245. So I just like to clarify that with people, because as they go through their financial statements, they start to see like, oh, well, our net position is this, but our fund balance is this. So those are as you're going through, you're going to see those terms of net position and your fund balance, and those are two different numbers. And the one you should be concerned with all of them, but the one that when talking about surplus and what you have available to you is your fund balance, and your fund balance on statement C and statement B. So
Statement C only, not B, Sam. Sorry if I misspoke.
Oh yeah, sorry, not
Just C.
B, not B.
Just C.
I meant to say E.
Mhm.
So that's really all I have for you guys. If you have any questions regarding their financial statements, or for us, I know that Karen wanted us to talk about the Veteran Memorial, which is another reason why I'm really glad that Kathy is here.
Right. So can I just give everyone a snapshot here?
Go right ahead.
So Putney Historical Society has a money market, and there's several $1,000s of money in there. They requested, and they asked me to ask the select board if we wanted to take that over. We haven't had that conversation yet, but when we had talked about it in a previous meeting, Josh, you had asked me to ask the auditor, how do we go about taking that over? What kind of fund would it be in? And Sam and I had the conversation, so I will have Sam update us.
So there's a couple, and Kathy, you can jump in whenever, but I think that there's a few different things that are going on and that need to be kind of taken into consideration as to, the origin of this money. Kathy, I believe, is going to affect what type of fund it needs to go into.
Yes, Sam, if you don't mind, I know you have a lot more background, but at least I can lay the groundwork for you.
Yes, go right ahead.
When, in my opinion, obviously I'm not going to tell you what to do, but in my opinion, whenever a governing board is presented with funds that they would like to accept from any outside source, it really is, as Sam mentioned, all about where did the money come from and how is it allowed to be used? Because you have money that can come in from a variety of sources, as you know, from any number of things with strings attached to it. And as the select board or the governing board, you want to make sure that you're honoring the manner in which the money was collected by the people who gave it in good faith to whatever purpose that they gave it to, and decide as a body whether or not you can honor that purpose in the best interest of your municipality. So if you understand where the money came from, how it's intended to be used, that will tell us as auditors what we would suggest that you do with it, or how we classify it for financial statement purposes. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
And Kathy, Karen and I had this conversation about for this type of fund, would it be smart of them to put a warrant on their town meeting to establish a separate fund for that?
I believe that would always be in the best interest, since it's going to come in and it's going to have strings attached, and you want to make sure that you, as well as the taxpayers, are on board with what it is those strings are. It could be something as simple as we raised money in the honor and memory of a beloved townsperson, but they want to put a fountain in the middle of your courtyard of the town office. I've actually seen that come before a select board and have them say, okay, that sounds good, but then nobody wanted to put in a fountain. So then you have to decide what you're going to do with that money. So I know it's just a really weird example, but something like that, if you're thinking that you want to have the townspeople buy into what it is that you're getting that money for, that certainly would be appropriate. And it can be as specific as designating it to go into a special revenue account, or even saying something like, accounting for it separately, all of those fun things that, your either attorney or some other legal counsel, or possibly us, depending on what you need from us, could have you craft based on the intentions of that money and your intentions for it once it gets to you.
So
Yeah, and like
wanna
I told
give
Karen. Oh, go
I
ahead,
want to
Josh.
give a little bit of background. This is money that the Historical Society, and I don't know exactly what the source of it was, but my belief is the intent, and correct me if I'm wrong, Karen, is to be there as a fund to support maintenance and upkeep of the Veterans Memorial that already exists on Town Hall property.
Right.
So and I don't know what the restrictions beyond it being spent for that memorial. I don't know whether there are further restrictions, but I don't think they're looking to change anything specific at the moment, but to have that money available so that, for example, when a name needs to get added,
Right.
there's money there so that we can pay a company to come in and add a name, or if a stone gets chipped or something happens that we need to repair, there's money available for that. So that's my understanding of the intent.
Mhm.
And I'm not sure how it ended up in the hands of the Historical Society, but it seems to me that it being in the hands of the town would be appropriate as sort of a pass-through organization. But I agree, how much is the amount of the account?
It was like 16,000 plus.
So we probably could go ahead and do that without having it as an article for town meeting to vote on. I think, although if we're establishing a specific fund,
Right.
Sam, then we do need to have town vote on it. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, my opinion is err on the side of caution and like full
Yeah.
transparency.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's just my personal and professional opinion. It's just full transparency. Just let the town know, like, hey, we were approached about taking this money. We're gonna do it. Do you approve us to create a fund for it and to maintain this money with the restrictions that are in line for that fund?
I think it would make sense to have that as a warrant, again, as Sam said, for full transparency. The sort of most direct parallel I can remember about this in relatively recent history was when the Cemetery Commission
Right.
presented cemetery funds that initially had been initiated largely for the purpose of maintaining Mount Pleasant, but also there were sort of bits and pieces of all sorts of things. That had been there historically for a long time, so the actual intent of many of the donors was not nearly as clear as we wanted it to be. One of the advantages of us having this within town is that we could probably maintain better records on where money came from and how it was spent and
Yeah.
things like that. So.
Yeah, I think that's really important. I've seen towns where when you spoke of cemeteries that, they have people arguing as to who has the rights to the money for the cemeteries. And then it turns into this whole rigmarole of trying to find the original documentation for the cemeteries and all that kind of stuff. So I just err on the side of caution, full transparency with your town as to what you guys are doing and what the money is for. Get an idea of where it's originally came from. It'll help us out to disclose them on your financial statements correctly. And yeah, so.
I will say, if it was donation based for some reason, or Historical Society had gotten that money through various fundraising efforts, it should just be about the Historical Society stating in writing what it is that they're giving you the money for, that they would like you to consider, and then that should be enough if there's no other documentation behind it.
Karen, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead, Eileen.
Do we have time to put another article on?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, the select board can put an article. And articles are due
26th.
13th, right?
Okay, we just had this discussion and I don't remember. Was it the 14th or was it the 26th?
The approval of the warning doesn't happen. It doesn't need to happen until the 26th. So we have up until that day for select board.
It's petitioned articles that need to be in. earlier
That's
than that.
correct.
Okay,
Correct.
all right.
Correct.
So we
Yeah.
have time.
So we
Yes.
can discuss that further at our next meeting if we, let's all
Yes.
let that percolate. Karen, maybe you can get a little bit more history from the Historical Society for us if you don't have it. Or if just so it's a little clearer about exactly what the intent is. You may be totally clear. I don't feel that I am, but
Well, no, and I will have them at the meeting and we can
Sounds good.
discuss it.
Okay.
that
So
Yeah.
Samantha and Kathy, so the town of Putney right now, so when I look at the audit, of course I recognize numbers, but the first thing I look for is like how much surplus like each account has. We also talked about any deficiencies in our processes. So can you kind of give the community like a quick snapshot?
Yeah, sure. So I mean, it's pretty simple. The way that the internal control, so just to give you a little bit of background as to what I do when I go in there, is I basically do what we call a test of controls. So I test the process of how paper gets from one place to another, how it gets in the door and out the door, how your bank reconciliations are done, how your accounts payables are done, how your payroll is run, accounts receivable, all that kind of stuff. And you guys are you guys are in very good shape. Karen and Alyssa, when she was employed at the town, they had things locked down. There were a little bit of concerns just as to the billing and sending out invoices and all that kind of stuff and where they were being sent out to. But by the sounds of the conversation I had earlier with Karen, it sounds like that is being remedied and taken care of, streamlined. Yeah. So, but there was no really huge red flags. And whatever I feel is like detrimental or that I think raises a concern to me is on the management letter, which I don't know if Karen had emailed that to you, which it really just lays out what I just said. There were some concerns and some questions as to how invoices are processed and where they're processed from and where that money is coming in and out of. But I mean, it sounds like Karen has streamlined that situation and taken care of that. But overall, the way that your town office is run is, by my standards, an A+. I think that you guys do a great job. So.
good.
Good
And
job.
so no material weaknesses, and no significant deficiencies, right? Compliance with other results. So I mean, you would call this an A+ would indicate this, but it's clearly a clean audit. I mean, there are no
Oh, absolutely.
significant, so that's great. Congratulations, Karen and Alyssa. Thank you. And tight oversight from a very controlling select board too. So,
That's funny.
Yeah, it's very nice to come in and be on year 2 of an audit, and Kathy can attest to this. It's nice to come in year 2 to an audit and have it be as clean as you guys are. So
yeah, good. So and
rare when we find
that definitely highlights both a lot of work that came previous to Karen, but also a lot of work. I mean, we've been slowly getting in better shape on our audits for years and years, and it's just really nice that we're now at a point, due to Karen's hard work and Alyssa's hard work, where we really can say that we're in good shape. And actually, honestly, a lot of that also is the sort of oversight of the entire office, including clerk, treasurer, so on and so forth, in ways that it historically didn't happen for us. So that makes all of that much more manageable. So that's very much appreciated.
Yeah.
Eileen or David, you have any? I mean, we only just got this, so, we should all
Yeah.
spend a little bit more time with it, and we'll have more conversations about it, but,
Absolutely. And Karen has my contact information. So if you guys have any questions regarding the draft, feel free to reach out and ask any questions you may have. It's a lot of pages to read, and I can't say that I've ever read every single page. So
It's such
You do?
stimulating
Good for
reading. I can't keep up.
Yeah.
So interesting. But, no, I'm actually really glad to hear your report. And when I first came on the select board, it was the thing I was most concerned about and interested in, was the
Yep.
financial well-being of the town. And Karen and Alyssa have done an amazing job, and thank you.
yeah.
Yes, thank
Yeah,
you.
so definitely we can work towards, getting a reserve fund set up, getting your fund balance to where we would like to see it. But as far as internal controls and how the day-to-day operations of the town office are run, I think it's great.
and again, haven't had a whole lot of time to review this. I'm assuming we spoke specifically about the general fund, but the highway fund is included in this audit as well, is it not?
Yes.
All of your funds are included in this audit. Yep.
Right.
So your
okay.
highway, yep.
Yeah. Okay.
Your highway fund is actually ending, I think, in like a $313,000
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
which is
amount. So Healthy.
good. Yes.
If I remember from our last discussion, your comments were that the general fund needs to move in the direction of the highway fund, that the highway fund was doing good already. And so that's
Absolutely.
motivation for reserve accounts.
Yep.
Yep.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And just so people are clear, we can spend general fund monies on highway stuff if we need to. We cannot, however, spend highway fund money on general fund issues. So highway fund is tightly restricted. Am I right in saying that, Samantha? Or, if
Kathy,
we
you
were
want to
short
clarify
in the
that?
highway-
From
Sorry,
my
go.
perspective, no, you're fine. The highway fund is restricted in and of itself. Yes, those funds
Right.
are restricted. Mhm.
Okay.
They cannot be
So-
used for any purpose other than the highway without taxpayer or in this case, possibly state approval.
Yes. So, and given what we're doing with the idea that we've been working on of increasing our reserve fund in the realm of purchase of highway vehicles, that larger volume of that. So, and we'll be looking at that on the articles for town meeting, asking the town to set more of that money aside for that reserve fund for capital purchases.
Yep.
So,
Perfect.
good. Great. Any other questions? All
No.
right. Thank you, Samantha, and thank you,
guys.
Kathy, right? Yes.
Yes, it was a
Um,
pleasure to meet you. I hope you have a good rest of your meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you
right.
all. Have a
Good
good night.
Have a good night.
Bye.
Okay, so next on our agenda, sorry, this takes me, Karen, you got an agenda right in front of you.
I have it. The next thing is Equity and Inclusion Committee.
Great. Okay, so Swift, I know you were at one point talking about turning at least some of that over to Therese. I don't know whether you want to do that, right? But
I think the first thing we wanted to do was the Martin Luther King Day statement.
Yes.
Yeah.
And Mark is here to read what he wrote.
Okay, good.
Hey, how's everybody doing? Sorry you can't see my face right now, but I see everyone. It's great to see everybody. Yeah, it's just a statement. Martin Luther King Day is on Monday, and I just thought that it would be great on behalf of the Equity and Inclusion Committee to just present this to everyone. So I will begin now. When I say today, it means Monday, but here it is. Today is a special day, a day to celebrate a family man, a leader, a Nobel Peace Prize winner, the late, great Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. On this beautiful day, let us take the time to reflect on who we are and how far we've come. Let's take the time to be grateful for what we have and what we can do together to continue to improve and communicate with one another. I know at times like this, during the pandemic, it can be hard to keep your heads up and to keep a positive mindset. I hope that with all that is happening, we can try to step away from ourselves and recognize and celebrate Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and use this time to see what we need to continue to be and do so we can be present and step up and speak up for those that can't. We need not allow one another to forget how far we've come and grown. We have all watched and heard Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. lead and put himself second and other people first, because equal rights and moving forward together matters. I hope that we as a community understand that we have a responsibility to continue to work, to continue to try to be open-minded and to care for one another. No matter our differences, because we can live the dream of Dr. King, a dream that he was unable to live and see. Understand for all of us to be able to work together, to have classes together, to eat together is a gift, a great gift. We as smart individuals, brave individuals, strong individuals must continue to be the best versions of ourselves and try our best to be there for one another. Remember, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. with hope in our hearts and our heads up held high, because we are the dream and we must keep the dream alive. Lastly, just a quick quote from Dr. King. If I stop to help the man, what will happen to me? But the Good Samaritan reversed the question. If I do not stop to help this man, what will happen to him? Thank you all.
Thank you, Mark.
Thanks, Mark.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Mark.
There you are.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you, Mark.
May I ask a question?
Well done.
Yes.
So, Mark, are you going to present that statement on Monday? Where are you?
I'm actually working J-term right now at the college, at Landmark College, and we have about 30, 40 students here. So I'm gonna be holding something actually down in diversity centers here at Landmark, where we're gonna be connecting with students. I'll be able to read the letter and also break out in the conversation with students, and then we're gonna show a film and just gather together and celebrate this day.
Are you inviting the public?
I don't think that would be something I could do because of the pandemic and how things have risen. So
All right.
we kind of had to change things around. I think that was definitely something that futuristic wise was in mind, but with all that's happening, things have really tightened up here. So I'm unable to do that, but I think, futuristic wise, I think that'd be something that'd be great to happen, something I wouldn't mind being a part of. And I'm sure with the rest of the amazing team that we're a part of, Equity Inclusion Committee, would be willing to definitely want to do something like that all together.
Great. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for allowing me to read that. Thank you.
We spoke a bit in our meeting on how and what the select board might want to do with a statement like that, coming from an advisory committee, of possibly posting it on the website or definitely publishing it and maybe posting it up in some physical places. I had emailed a little bit with Eileen of I don't think it's necessarily something we would create a resolution for and have your names at the bottom of it along with equity inclusion, but maybe it is, and then it gets posted on the website. But I guess I'm just putting to you as a select board of what you might want to do with that statement, more than just reading it right now. I mean, there's 8 people, 10 people, more than that, whatever, I can't count in this room. And so glad you're all here, but this piece of making it a bit more public and also sort of having the select board attached to that and agree with it and sort of amplify that message.
Eileen.
Well, I think as far as getting it out to the public is concerned, there's several ways for us to do it. One is to, put it into the minutes as the full statement, which we've done in the past, I believe. There's a possibility that we could just take the whole statement and put it on the website. I'd be amenable to that. As far as the select board is concerned, I think each individual one of us, you know, I personally agree with, I think it was a beautiful statement from Mark. And I don't have anything to add to it. But I agree with the sentiment. I think it's a good reminder for everyone to understand that we do have differences and that we are all human, and that gathering together, ideally physically, is definitely something that we need to continue to do, to get over our differences and move forward as a town and as a country.
Yeah, I'm happy to. I don't think we need a resolution, but I'm happy to. I also would embrace this statement, and I'm happy to, if we all embrace this statement, I'm happy to just make that as a statement that the select board supports the equity and inclusion group in promotion and distribution of this statement. I also, for me, in reading it previously and then hearing Mark reading it, I also want to just take 2 seconds to think, because there's been a lot of discussion about this at the federal level of the late Senator John Lewis, who was such a proponent of voting rights, and what a struggle that is in this country at this moment. And I know that at the federal level, there's been some sort of centering around Martin Luther King Day, but I think that it just highlights the reality that the struggle of Martin Luther King is not over, and John Lewis, closely affiliated, and voting rights in the current moment are just at tremendous risk. I mean, I think that we're fortunate in Vermont that that isn't a huge issue for us, but boy, it's a huge issue across the country. So I think we all need to be mindful of that, and particularly just on Martin Luther King Day, because it represents such an important aspect of voting rights and the reality we're facing in the moment. So sort of a personal statement, but sorry.
Thank you, Josh.
Is there a way we can word like the end of that as just like written by Mark Thurman, co-chair of the Equity Inclusion Committee, endorsed by the Town of Putney Select Board? Or like as we're publishing it and putting it in places?
I'm okay with that. David, Eileen?
We could, you want to, I mean, I'm okay with making a motion to that effect. Yeah, I'm okay with making a motion to that effect. Oops. Do you see me? Do you still hear me?
Yeah.
Okay.
You were cutting in and out pretty bad. I didn't hear you for a second, but I do.
Yeah, my internet went unstable for a second.
I can relate. That's why I'm at the town hall.
Yeah. It's usually fine. It's just probably because we're having a select board meeting. I don't know where I left. Did you hear what I said, or
if you could just say it again, that would be
okay.
great.
I said I would be okay with making a motion to endorse the statement, if that's.
I'm fine with that.
Okay, so I'll make a motion to endorse the statement read by Mark Thurman.
And I'll second that.
It's been moved and seconded to endorse the statement. I believe written and read by Mark Thurman as presented with a quote from Martin Luther King. But
Yes.
If there's no further discussion.
Michelle Alexa has her hand up.
Sure, Michelle.
I'm wondering if it's possible that maybe like under the town page for the equity and inclusion, if that statement could kind of be maybe like highlighted under the, under the subline of the equity and inclusion, kind of as something that, this is very much something that the Equity and Inclusion Committee stands for. This is our statement on behalf of, Mark and the town. Here we are.
That's a website administrator question, but I don't see why not.
I would just say the piece of putting it more front and center and putting it on our homepage for the next month or something, especially through February.
So what I can do is create a link that will go directly to that document. And if you want language on that particular page for this statement, I would ask the Equity and Inclusion Committee to send me something.
Yeah, Mark and I can figure out some language of like the town and equity inclusion statement for Martin Luther King Day. And that, then you'd click on that on the page and it would go to the full statement.
Right.
All right. Any other questions or comments? Don't see any. Okay, so it was moved and seconded to endorse the statement written and read by Mark Thurman through the Equity and Inclusion Committee. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Good. Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Swift.
Thank you.
Oh,
I think
So
I'm up next.
sounds
we
good.
have Community Equity Networking Status Report. So I think that's you. Yeah.
Yes. So hi, I have kind of changed my name back to Teresa Tress, so whatever you want to call me. So I just wanted to, I sent a copy of a summary of some of the information that I have gathered from the town, some of the services, some of the organizations, some of the schools. I don't know if it was passed on to you and if you've all had a chance to look at it.
Yeah, they have
Yes.
it.
Okay,
was
so
in
I'm
our
just going to
packet.
speak a little briefly about it, especially for the visitors here tonight. So we've been charged with certain things to do, and so I took it upon me to compile information regarding equity and inclusion locally and at the state of Vermont. So I am I realize that this is sort of an ongoing process. I originally reached out to about 14 places in Putney. And then after talking with Karen yesterday and Swift, I reached out again to another 8 yesterday. I've heard back from a whole, most of the people I originally had reached out to. So I think this will just be sort of a living document, and I'll keep including more information as I gather it. And I think there's probably a few more. I think there's a lot of businesses that we could keep, reaching out to. So we'll see how far that goes. But in general, I also looked a little bit into what the state of Vermont's doing. So on all levels in this state, either town or state or city or individual, people are thinking about equity and inclusion. So on the state level, they are definitely, I think talking about that in legislative sessions and also in some of their organizations. And then I also listened to at length the Vermont League of City and Towns Equity committee meeting, sort of where they just talked about all the work they're doing. So I think the League of Cities and Towns is hoping that the towns can get together and start to work together too. So they got a lot of charges and they're fulfilling those. So you might have seen a little bit about what they're working on. And then I went to the local people here, and mostly I did talk to some in person, some mostly by email. Everybody was gracious. I feel like they were really, a lot of people seemed excited about that this is the work that we're doing and this is where Putney is going. And so they gave me as much information as they could. Some organizations felt like, oh, we really want to start thinking about this, but we need help. Other organizations had spent some time thinking about it and had really put it into their policies and practices. Other organizations or services had started the process, but would like to get more help or to increase their awareness and then their policies and practices. So I don't know if you had a chance to really look at it, but I felt like, a lot of places at least are trying to practice it. And then some had really taken some time to write it out, but everybody seems to be interested in going forward with it. One of the things that we talked about with the equity and inclusion committee is what to do with this information, especially since some of the places were saying, we need help. And I thought that each, places, they could help each other and not so much just rely on us since we don't always know all the answers. So, I would love to see, and I think that the equity committee would love to see us going forward at some point and finding a way to start helping everybody network and helping each other out, because some people had certain aspects of equity inclusion that they understood, and others had other parts of it. So, it could be more holistic that way. I also thought that, once I have compiled quite a bit of information, someone had suggested that I write sort of a summary, not necessarily naming any place, but just like an overall general statement about what we've gathered for the town that could be maybe put on the website of like, this is, the town of Putney and many of the schools and organizations and services are really putting energy and time into looking at their equity and inclusion practices and policies.
Good. Thank you very much. This is clearly a lot of work and well compiled and presented. Thank you. Yeah, I would agree with you. You said you can imagine this or see this as sort of a living document, and that certainly makes sense to me. This is the kind of information that will do nothing but grow and build as people see it and continue their work, et cetera. So that's a great sort of starting point for it. Thank you.
Welcome.
Swift.
Mark, Swift, nope, I think we're good. Just wanted to, oh, you want to go to the next piece? That was, or do you want me to speak to?
Either or.
No, I think that we're just excited and curious about what next steps might be. We had talked about networking, the possibility of starting to invite organizations to our meetings. I don't think we're quite there yet because we're still going through some policy stuff with the town and Karen. We're still wanting to work on the survey. That was something we talked about a while back, and we actually formed a subcommittee, but we wanted to get this done first and get this going. And now it might be starting to take some steps on starting to survey the town on what the public believes the needs are. So I don't think we'll start those kind of networking meetings yet, but that we might start kind of hosting those. That an organization or two might present at one of our meetings around what they're doing in relation to equity and inclusion in Putney. And also that would be specifically inviting some of the other organizations that are interested in learning. So things like that.
I'm just curious, Teresa, whether and Mark, sorry, I don't know whether Mark's still here or not, but Putney School and Landmark are clearly both organizations that are both, obviously fairly substantial presence in town and definitely doing this work. And did you have conversation with them? Were they willing, able, or not able to respond? And just a question.
Yes. I have put out with Mark and asking him to, put maybe a statement of what he's doing for work there. So I think he's just been really busy. So I think I will hear from him. And I recently reached out to Lisa. I just wanted to get some more information about, reaching out to her before I did that, just out of respect for her. So that has been, I am reaching out to them too. So hopefully I expect to, and also the Putney Grammar School.
And the
I'm,
doctor's office too. You were hoping, the doctor's office is obviously slammed right now, but Tress has mentioned a
Yes.
few times of like really wanting to get them in the room as well.
I would really like to get them in the room, but they said right now that they just can't even think, straight. So, yeah, and in a couple of the other ones that I've added on, I guess it's called Soundview now, but it was Putney
Mhm.
Paper Mill, because I feel like they're a big,
Yep.
contributor to this community. And then I could put it in the document of the other places that I've recently reached out to.
Great.
But yeah, I think that as many places that I can think of, or anybody has, Karen gave me some good suggestions, and I've also thought of some more. I just keep going on the website and putting Putney something and seeing what comes up. And but yes, those two schools have been included in this, because I do think that they have a lot to offer us.
And I mean, Swift or somebody mentioned the grammar school. There's also the Greenwood School, and then
Yes.
also different type of organization, but Oak Meadow School, which resides in the Basketville.
Right.
So
Right.
lots
And
of
I did just
educational
reach out.
institutions who are
Mhm.
involved in this stuff. So.
Right.
Yeah, and we're
And I
thinking of even including small organizations like talking to Swirl and talking to the
Yes.
I mean, the general stores on there, but like all the businesses there, because
Mhm.
whether they do or don't, they might be curious about it.
Yes, and I did that. I actually did Richard Bissell, because he's been here for a while, and I just did Fletcher. I felt like it might be good to have a lawyer thinking about these things. So we'll see if I reached out to him. So
Sounds good. Helena, you were raising your hand.
Tress, I think I heard you say some groups wanted some help, and I thought, how is there a way to respond to that and not wait? I mean, I know there are people who have techniques and strategies that they could share, and you probably know maybe how to connect them without too much, I don't know, without waiting.
That's a really good question. Maybe we can bring that up at our next committee meeting. Okay. But I think that's, yeah, because I have been, I did reach out to a few of them and said, we'll be back to you. But at the same time, they're probably like, where are they? And maybe there is some ways to, at least start that process, even if it's not as formal as we were hoping it would be.
Yeah, exactly. Thanks.
Sounds good. So next, Swift, you have recommended social agency appropriations, and I see I haven't had time to review them, but we do have submissions from some of the agencies that you
Yeah,
have
I think it was just announcing who has submitted, and that was a really successful campaign that I think all of the organizations that we recommended submitted, except for the NAACP, which recommended a mutual aid organization. I'm sorry, I'm blanking on the name, but it's the one that covers Townsend and Newfane. Karen, maybe you can remember who I'm talking about.
It was the West River.
Thank you.
Mutual aid, right?
West River Valley Mutual Aid.
Yeah.
So I reached out to them to see if they were interested in submitting. They weren't like officially in our recommendation, but I just sent it along with, because I trust the NAACP. So that wasn't an official endorsement from the equity committee, but we chose to personally just kind of just do that as an ad hoc thing of recommending that they apply. But I think all of the other 4 organizations did submit. So that's Out in the Open, that's Atawi, that is The Root, and that is Susu Community Farm. So they've all submitted a questionnaire with a request to be added to the giving policy. And I just really want to honor John Johnson in this. This was like one of the reasons he joined the equity committee back in 2019. This was like he said he didn't want the credit, but I really just want to honor that was one of the reasons that he did join the equity committee and was a big flame in trying to get that going. And I'm really excited that this is happening now. And I think we can give a little credit to him and the flames that he fanned in trying to spark this.
Good, thank you. All right, next on our agenda, so we're gonna table town meeting preparation, partly because I think we haven't gotten as much information from the Secretary of State's office yet as we might like to have. I'm sure they are working feverishly on this, but trying to figure out how to, I think people were sort of assuming things were going to go back relatively to normal. And we've clearly had a loop thrown in that. So I'm sure they're looking at, and I'm sure the legislature as well is looking at what needs to be done to prepare for town meeting. So Karen, you got more on that?
The only thing I can add is that one bill has passed the Senate and the House, and it's sitting on the governor's desk. There's a second bill as well for open meetings to go remote.
Yes.
And I don't know what the status, if it's gone through any, the Senate or the House at this point, but we should know by the 19th.
I believe it passed the Senate. It's in the House right now.
All right, thank you, Eileen.
Sounds good. Good. So we will be continuing to revisit town meeting preparation on a regular basis until probably pretty much until town meeting, because it may be changing as we go. So all right, so, and we're going to table item E as well, State of Vermont Equalization Study. So that would
favorite subject.
Yeah. So that would take us to the People's Bank Treasurer Resolution Review and Approval. Karen, you want to just run us through what that's about?
Sure. So in your packet is People's United Bank, the resolution to add Cassandra Polachek. She is the new executive assistant / treasurer. And Kim Monroe too, we had added her as a finance officer, but she technically is the assistant treasurer as well. So this will give them both the authority to sign checks. And it's been a very long time since we've had a treasurer and an assistant treasurer in the office. So staffing has been a challenge, but I think we're moving forward, and I'm hoping it's going to work and it'll fit, and we'll be covered.
So I would entertain a motion for the Select Board to approve the People's United Bank Business Deposit Account Certified Resolutions.
So moved.
And seconded.
And I think I'm having a hard time reading it. Yes, that has both. Okay, that has both of it embedded.
Yes.
Right. So, okay. It has been moved and seconded to approve the Business Deposit Account Certified Resolutions from People's United Bank to include Kim Monroe and Cassandra Polachek as treasurer and assistant treasurer. Are there any questions or comments on that?
No, not really, but I think it would be, I met Cassandra the other day, and I just wanted to say welcome aboard.
Good, thank you. I haven't yet met her, so yes, welcome aboard from me too, and I look forward to meeting you, Cassandra. But thank you, Eileen. Okay, if there's no further discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Good, thank you. Okay, so next.
So in your packets, the financials for the second quarter. Take a look at them if you have questions. I know it's going to be confusing because we're doing budgets too, but the only thing I want to point out is, and I brought this up before, because of the July 29th storm, the highway department, I will have to request from the bank the line of credit, because right now before we posted, the highway department is in a negative state because we have expense for the storm $554,000 out of that budget. So I'm going to go ahead and do that because it's the proper thing to do and not work out of the general fund.
And I assume that's because I'm sorry, Dave.
So where are we at with the FEMA? We're hoping to recover some of this money.
Yeah, I was gonna make an announcement in my town managers, but I'll brief you quickly. So Tom, Brian and I are working with FEMA. We just signed, I signed yesterday with our FEMA representative, Jessica Roderick, the damages report. We have 5 different groups. Cemetery Road is 1, River Road South is 2. And then we had to put a bunch of roads into, 3 other groups.
Right.
So what happens with FEMA is if we have a project that is like $132,000 or more, there's an extra step to close out that project, and that money takes longer to get back to municipalities. So we're currently working with spreadsheets. We have to input everything into a spreadsheet, and then it calculates the dollar amount for damages. So Tom's working on that right now. And we won't know what the other 3 groups look like, but we are working on 1 group and River Road South because that project's already done. All right. So if we can turn this around and try to get some revenue back in, FEMA has stated that reimbursement to towns can be up to 6 months to a year. So unfortunately, I was thinking I wouldn't have to tap into that line of credit, but just to be safe, I'm going to go ahead and do that this week. I may not do the whole amount, but I'm probably going to do at least 350,000 right now, which will, we'll have to pay the interest on that, which I'll have to add it to the highway budget for 23.
And what was the rate on that? It was a good rate.
It was a very good rate. I don't know off the top of my head.
I don't need to know exactly if you don't have it right there, but it was less than 3%, I think. David?
This is a question just about FEMA, just so I understand. The groups, as we put roads into groups, what were the rules around having to group them? And did we have any latitude in the number of groups we could submit so that possibly we could control the outcome of the total for each group that might affect the time we get the money back if the projects individually were less than 132,000?
So FEMA does not want like 10 plus groups.
Got it.
They want us to consolidate as much as we can.
Got it.
And without inputting the data into the spreadsheet,
You can't know.
we don't know.
Right.
And what we've done with the projects is, so one group is like Houghton Brook Road and that area.
So it's geographical and not timing?
Some are geographical. So one group is Houghton Brook with Putney Mountain. One group is Tavern Hill. Another group is East Putney. So, we'll see what happens. There are obviously Houghton Brook and Putney Mountain is going to be a big number. There was a lot of damage, but as soon as I have numbers, I can let the board know, but we're trying to keep it under the 132 threshold, but there's no guarantee.
No, I was just curious. Thank you.
Yep.
Good. Thanks. So you already have our approval to go ahead and draw on that line of credit.
Yes.
So we don't need to worry about that. And yeah, I clearly we should stay ahead of our bills. So do what you need to do. But I appreciate also that you're thinking not to draw on it any more than you have to, because You know, and I don't know whether it makes any sense to spend down some of that highway department money in the interest of reducing the amount of interest paid, but that may just be too complex. So,
Yeah, the interest rate on that loan or line of credit is 1.75%.
yeah, so that's pretty painless. And also, I mean, obviously the intent would be there's no penalty for prepayment. So
Right.
That's an open line and we would be trying to pay it down as quickly as possible. So
Right.
as soon as we had money in, we would be paying that off. So good. Thank you, Karen.
You're welcome.
All right. So
Business?
People's Bank. Right. Next would be other business. Any other business that anybody has? I don't see any hands raised and I don't hear anybody speaking up. So I think we're good in that department. We are not going to have an executive session tonight,
Oh,
correct?
We have,
Karen?
sorry, we have Lori Cartwright has her hand up.
Oh, sorry, Lori.
It
yeah,
just
go.
went up.
Lori,
No
go ahead.
problem. No problem. I just raised it. I have a question on that agenda item that seems to be pretty consistent. That's other, but it's not specified. Would that ever be something that the board could take action on? Is it properly warned if it just says other, or would that be something that you would initially discuss and then warn it and then take action on it, if so?
The only, I don't have I don't know enough to answer your question completely accurately. My assumption would be the only time we might take an action on something that wasn't otherwise previously warned was if it was sort of truly an emergency. I mean, if something had happened between the time the meeting was warned and the time that we had a select board meeting and it necessitated us taking action, for example, releasing funds from an account or something like that, then I would imagine we might take action. But generally, it's just sort of a holding place for other topics that didn't come up. Eileen?
Tim Morris has his hand up, and I think in practice, we try not to take action on anything that wasn't on the agenda, even if we do an adjustment to the agenda, which we are technically allowed to do. I think in practice, we try not to do that at all.
Yeah, no, that's why I say it would only be in an emergency situation that we, that's the only time I could imagine. I can't think of a time when we've ever done that, but I can imagine that it could happen. Tim. Sorry, we don't have audio from you. You're not on mute, but.
No.
Still nothing.
There we go.
There you are.
Just came through.
I had one, it's hopefully a quick question. I was wondering, I know that someone mentioned that the deadline for town meeting day questions is the 14th. And I had a petition submitted that John had said that there were sufficient signatures on as of this morning. And I just didn't know if there would be any issue because I realize you're probably not going to be acting on that till next week.
No, well, we would, that's sorry.
That's just for petitions.
That,
okay.
Right. So this is petition for office to be listed as a candidate. Is that correct, Tim?
No, it's a town meeting day question.
Okay, for an or submitted for an article.
That's correct. Yes.
Yes. No. So if it was submitted today, he would have recorded it, and that we won't even see it until he's done his part, and then it'll come to.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right. Any other business?
I don't see any more hands. No.
Okay, good. And Karen, we are not having an executive session, correct?
That is correct.
Okay, and our next regular meeting will be January 26th at 5:30. But in the meantime, we will be having a special meeting on January 19th at 5:30. Same place, same channel, etc. And we don't know exactly what the circumstances will be related to town hall at this point. That we'll sort of see how things play out. My assumption would be by that time we are likely to have the three of us in person at town hall, but perhaps not. So, but otherwise we will have a means for everybody to include themselves as necessary. So thank you all very much. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
I make a motion
Oh,
to
sorry.
adjourn. I'll
Okay.
second. I'll third.
It's been moved and seconded, and if there's no further discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Thank you, Karen, and thank you,
Everyone.
everybody else, for joining us. All right.